Everyone pay attention to this. And Rolo, I think you'll benefit from this if you actually like really take this to heart. We got two sayings for you. One, you talking, but you ain't saying shit. And then the second one is make it plain, which means like, God damn it, make it easy for us. We have a 3-sentence Bible. Be yourself, be good to yourself, be good to good people. From there, we can root many things. Let me destroy red pill real quick. Okay, so this is why you guys are circular and unproductive. The problem of the red pill is that it's run by nerds. And the issue with nerds is nerds are not people of action. They're people of thought. That's the problem with you guys, is that you want to do it in the beta male way. You want to do it in the beta male way, not realizing that when someone has power, the only way to take it out of their hands is to rip it out. I would sock Rolo the out, and I would sock you out. That's just me, though. I don't recommend that. We even have something called the Quran, the Bible, the Torah. Those books are called holy by God, and they don't do anything. So to think that a book is about to change anything significant is just, it's silliness. Honestly, it's infantile thinking. In the book, he said something critical. He said, the written word will never change the world. In a book, within the written word, he said the written word will never change the world. Which is to say you need action.
Darius says Marquett has provided tools that allows his subscribers to start businesses that meant tall stacks of money within months and keep loads of high quality women. Red Pill has not done nearly that much.
If I'm talking to a simple man, I speak like a simple man. And when I'm talking to a Korean, I say, 안녕하세요. 만나서 I speak in Korean. There is no need for me to speak in a language people don't understand because it will never help the people. What's the red pill? Blah, blah, blah. Who's the leader? Kevin Samuels. Who's the leader? AMS. Who's the leader? Rolo Tomasi. It's like, God damn. Today, ladies and saints, we have an interesting show. This ball, bro, we just watched an intro, man. Just get to it. Just get to it. Lord Jesus. I trust you all have heard of the red pill.
You're a real man. Okay. You're RP. Okay.
I trust you all have heard of Rolo Tomasi, the man with the most epic beanie game in world history. I trust you guys have heard of the white man who has created the white man's do-rag. None other than yours truly. They call him the godfather of the red pill. Here he is. You said he wouldn't show. There he is. And Rolo, you are real. You're either a psychopath, a saint, or a savage, because I cook over here. Everyone, it's well known that I cook over here. So shout out to you for showing up.
Sure.
Now, what in the hell is the red pill actually?
What we call the red pill right now is a college course. It's like it's a college major. It's not something you could put on a bumper sticker. You have to actually understand what it's being talked about. If I were to distill it down into like one sort of mission statement, I would say that it is the praxeology of intersexual dynamics is what it is. And it's the praxeology in the sense that it is a study of behavior. If you know what praxeology is, and I'm not using it in the economics terms, I mean the classic Greek terms, praxis. It is the study of human behavior in that that behavior has some sort of purpose or some sort of function to it. And it's not about prescriptions. It's not a movement. It's not a belief set. It's not a religion. It's not an ideology. It's not a philosophy. It's not me teaching or preaching or whatever else. It is what it is. And I was explaining to the guys on the Danza project about 3 weeks ago with Mike Sartain, and they asked a similar question, what is the red pill? And so I mentioned, it's the praxeology of intersexual dynamics, but there's also like my personal, like, if I have like a mission statement, it is, and I stole this from Gadsod, by the way.
So now we're separating from what red pill is to Rolo Tomasi and what Rolo Tomasi is about.
You have to remember that my mission statement is that I have an obligation to objective truth. Okay. So that's what I'm looking. What is true? I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong. Some of this shit sounds really bad, right? Some of this sounds really, really good. And that's usually when people want to pick it out and put, kind of plug and play whatever it is that the red pill offers into their sort of belief sets. And then that's when You have people wanting to turn it into a practice or wanting to turn it into some sort of a movement or whatever it else. And I'm not saying that there aren't those aspects of it that people are doing that right now, but in its purest form, the red pill really is just a praxeology of intersexual dynamics, in that human behavior has some sort of purpose or some sort of incentive, some sort of motivation behind it. And what are those things? And it's basically the study of that. So I think when we start turning it into like when I talk about like black pill or MRAs or or incels or this or this or this, like there's all these offshoots of it. Every offshoot of the red pill is a practice. It's a here's what you ought to do with this information that is the red pill. That's why you have to separate the red pill from all that crap, because what they're doing is they're taking the information that the red pill offers and they're going, here's best practices. Here's what we ought to be doing. Here's how this fits into my ideology. And I don't like that stuff, so we're going to push that over the side and we're going to keep this stuff. And then that's my new red pill kind of thing.
Okay.
And so there's the theory and the hypothesis, and then there's the practice, like theory and practice.
So let me, I'm going to tell you what I understand of what you've said, just to make sure that we're on the right page. I'm not debating you on the definition, because I sincerely asked you to tell me. So number one, and I think this occurs a lot, right? This is similar to Marxism, in as much as when you take Marxism, you have persons who would call themselves Marxists, as though he was one who creates ideology, wherein he had a framework or a worldview that kind of like almost like using scientific determinism, but basically says you can look at the world and understand the world through this perspective. However, I am not telling you to create revolution or to do X, Y, and Z. I am explaining human nature and explaining the way modes of productions are currently proceeding and how the world will inevitably change, which is to say, I am not telling you what to do. I am telling you what will happen, whether you heard of Marxism or not. So I'm giving you a lens through which you can look. Would that be comparable to say that in as much as Marxism is not an ideology?
Okay, Marxism is an ism. Okay, so therefore it is a movement. It is a belief set, is what it is.
Is it?
Well, in the sense that it's, I mean, we literally call it Marxism. So that's so, yes. And
so the difference being that we're talking about what people who would call themselves Marxists have done, but what Marx presented being a philosophy, different from an ideology. Ideology having identity, having program. Hey, you need to do this. You see, those who call themselves Marxists, for example, they tried to create revolution in retrograde economies. And Marx himself said that you would not have revolution in retrograde economies that are largely peasant or serf-based. So the persons who called themselves Marxists, these were the doers, the revolutionaries, whereas Marx is an arid intellectual and academic and did not suggest that anyone do anything.
Well, at the core of, let's say, just say Marxism, okay, at the core of Marx, he was using what he had available to him at the time, what technologies he had available, what he understood of human nature at that particular time. I've gotten into, actually, strangely enough, I've gotten into conversations about Marxism on occasion.
Well, it's always relevant.
Yeah, well, the thing is like when I'm talking about like how women's innate like psychological profiles really geared towards communitarianism, and we get into topics of like socialism or communism and stuff like that, like or egalitarianism, right? Feminism and Marxism both came up right around the same time, right? Mid 1800s. So if you look at, and I criticize not just Marx but other like notables as well for the same thing, is that they're using a worldview that was informed by what they knew at that time. So if they think that human nature is thus, like if you read, was it Niccolo Machiavelli? If you read the qualities of the prince, right? Right. And he's looking around, he's giving you what he's observing. This is what's happened with the princes and the people, like the leaders that I know. And it's better to be it's better to be a son of a bitch than it is to actually be a good person, because if you don't, you lose power and you're done, right? So if you look at the difference between, say, like the communist or Marx's,
Das Kapital would be
whatever. Marx's writings versus like say Machiavelli. Those are like two very, very different like worldviews. And remember, Machiavelli's writing it like right in the middle of the high Renaissance there, right?
Well, those are two radically different things. Like, for example, Marx was a true philosopher. Like Marx is a legend as a thinker. and he was not telling anyone to pick up his book as a manual. Conversely, Niccolo Machiavelli was creating a manual for how to acquire, maintain, and expand power for princes, for aristocracy. And in fact, at that time, he was trying to regain a job after falling out of favor. So he is an advisor to kings, to royalty. So he had to speak to that demographic and tell them how to execute on their core duties. Conversely, Marx was saying, I observe the world and I'm giving you scientific determinism, which basically says that human beings are so predictable and so greedy, and the modes of production have been so clearly arranged that if it continues this way, this class of people will do this because of X, Y, and Z. So he was predictive, and almost like he was like damn near a prophet, and that's kind of some of the challenges with his
the problem with prophets, and the problem with, like, let's say like I'm really critical of Carl Jung, for example. I'm very critical of Karl Marx. I'm very critical, even Niccolo Machiavelli, but only because we hold those individuals up as sort of like, you know, prophets or these saints or these, you know, these really, you know, wizened, you know, wisdom of the ancients kind of guys, right? You have to remember that those guys were operating on their understanding of human nature during the times that they were alive. So if we fast forward to, like, say the last 60 years, really, since, like, say the sexual revolution, or right up to where we're at in, you know, 2023 right now, we've plotted the human genome. We're looking at, like, CRISPR engines, you know, to re-engineer our children and stuff like that. We know more about the human mind, and we know more about human behavior, and we know more about anthropology, sociology, biology, endocrinology. I mean, name the ologies, right? We have all of this far advanced, like, I mean, like, godlike technology and godlike information that none of those individuals had any clue even existed at that time. So really, I mean, again, are we using, like, when I talk about how the red pill is a praxeology, I look at it as if it's like, say, like the Chilton manual of, like, intersexual dynamics. And if you know what a Chilton manual is, it's like the manual that, you know, mechanics use to, say, put together a 1968 Volkswagen Bug, right? You have this manual and it says, here's every single part by number, here's how it goes together, and this is how it's constructed.
A manual tells you what to do. Does the red pill tell you what to do?
See, the manual doesn't tell you what to do. It just tells you how it goes together, what the parts look like, and how they go together. It doesn't tell you how to drive the car. It doesn't tell you what kind of gas mileage it's going to.
I don't know what a Chilton manual is. I don't know precisely if this is outside of my era, but generally, like, the concept of a manual, when you get a manual, it's usually a how-to book, right?
Well, it depends. Like, that's why we always call it the Chilton. You know, Chilton manuals maybe a bit before your time, but they used to be that they had manuals for every single car that was made, and it was like for mechanics, so that they could sort of brush up on wherever they were working on, like, say it was the engine or the brakes or whatever, and they could literally take it from part by part by part and put the car back together, you know, piece by piece. It's here's what is. It's not what ought to be. And the red pill, at least in my estimate anyways, is something that it's as a praxeology, it's an evolving science still too. It's loose. Okay. It's written in pencil. It's not written in pen.
So it's a lens, but it's not telling you what to do. It's telling you how to see the truth.
It's not an ought. It's just, here's the data. Here's the information. And here's maybe this is a better way to put it. I don't know if you read my books, but in the introduction, pretty much every single book that I have, I explain it this way. It's like, I'm not in the business of making men better men. I'm in the business of giving men the tools and the equipment, and the, you know, here's some dots to connect, right? Here's the education, the tools, the paintbrush and the paints and everything, so you can paint the picture of your life, kind of thing. And I'm not in the business of making men better men. I want men to make themselves better men using this data set, using this new updated, you know, understanding of human nature. And if there's a red pill that sort of like separates you from, like, the way that you thought things were supposed to work, it's like using the old set of rules versus here's the new set of rules. And it's really up to the individual. It's not like, I don't have none of my books are like 12 rules for life, or like, you know, seven tips on how to have an awesome life.
Shots fired!
Surprise you, you know, it's not, it's not a what you should do. That's best practices. That is a ought, that's should. And the red pill, I think, in its purest form, is here's what is. This is what we got. Connect these dots. Tell me, and then let's have a conversation. If you think I'm full of shit, I want to know, because I want to get to the truth, rather than like say this is bad, this is good. I just want to know what it is, so that we can create like predictive frameworks so that we can actually form best practices at some point.
Got you. And I, in full transparency, I think that just the convoluted nature of that explanation
Mhm.
is probably troubling to those who would seek help in knowing the true nature of the average person and what they're able to comprehend.
Oh yeah. As I said, it's a college course. It's not a bumper sticker.
Well, it's not even a college course at a state college. It's a college course at an advanced college, a high tier college, right? And
Well, I mean, think about it though. Like when we talk about intersectional dynamics, think of all of like the subfields that crosses. Like I don't per se talk about politics. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about race. I don't like individual, like specifically. I will talk about those topics if intersectional dynamics crosses over into them. So like, for instance, if we're talking like the last midterm election cycles here in the United States, we're talking about, student debt forgiveness, which is primarily owned by women. I'll talk about politics. We're talking about like, kicking Roe v. Wade back to the states. I'll talk about that because that's intersectional dynamics right there. So if you think about it, there's so many different like subfields like anthropology, sociology, psychology, evolutionary biology, political science, all these things in some way are interrelated to intersectional dynamics. So yeah, it can be a very complex thing to consider.
And I think that in its complexity, it becomes useless in as much as, in my experience, having open businesses throughout the world in obviously different countries, but various languages, and being in a highly technical business that has both a hardware, firmware, and software play, you're dealing with high levels of true complexity and significant systems and supply chains and all this stuff. And one thing I always could assess, no matter what language someone was speaking, even if I had to hear them talk to me through a translator, the persons who can make things simple, they understand.
Oh yeah.
I took a master's degree at Johns Hopkins University. I also took a job there as a director, and I was the only person there without a proper degree. Like, I had a master's, but everyone else had an MD or a PhD, right? So I was the dumb kid on the block. And I remember, engaging with folks like former presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson, who is an actual genius, not like a Kanye West, I'm a genius, but a real genius. I mean, the man has pioneered methods in neurosurgery, right? Like separating occipitally conjoined craniospagus twins. And I remember the thing that he told me, he said, people who understand can make it simple. That's number one. And this is from an actual brain surgeon. And then number two, he said, if you need something done, ask a busy person because they'll hurry and get it done. Whereas if you have someone who's not busy, they'll take forever to do nothing.
Sure.
Those are two things I held on to him from him. And when I'm looking at, if we actually want the man to be able to achieve more in the society, we're talking about the average man. We're not talking about the scholar. We're not talking about Elon Musk. Hell, we're not talking about Rollo Tomasi. We're not talking about Marquett Burton. We're talking about the dude who works at 7-Eleven. So one, I say no pill. I think the red pill is rubbish. I'm not saying I don't think you're smart. I think you're plenty bright, and I trust very helpful to a multitude of persons, but I'm saying the red pill as a concept is rubbish. It is not clear. And it's like the worst form of religion, in as much as you have religious adherents who have the same kind of dogmatic, foolish beliefs, but it's worse than traditional religion in as much as there's no Bible, there's no clear doctrine. So they all babble. You got one guy says, you're not red pill, you're beta, you're this, you're that. And they argue amongst one another about God knows what, because none of them actually understand or are even in the same boat. Whereas conversely, I say, here's something clear. We have a 3-sentence Bible. Be yourself, be good to yourself, be good to good people. From there, we can root many things. Then we have clear point-by-point ideology, identity written down. Here's what you do. Here's the daily practices of how you live this life. Here's what it's supposed to lead to. Whereas you find red pill folks, and I remember I did this live stream about 4 years ago now. It was like really at the beginning. I did a live stream, something like the red pill is dead or something like this. And then I let people come on. Bunch of red pillars came on, and I said, what's the red pill? Blah, 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 blah. What's the red pill? Blah, 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 blah. Who's the leader? Kevin Samuels. Who's the leader? AMS. Who's the leader? Rollo Tomasi. It's like, God damn, you have a bad slave, the red pill, with many masters.
Does there have to be a master? Can it not be decentralized? Can it not just be a pursuit for objective?
If it's going to actually be useful, but my estimation of the red pill, what it actually is an online community of or let me see, an online community of bookish complainers. It's an online community of bookish complainers.
Let me see if I can clarify a few things for you here. Number one is like I said, again, the red pill in its purest state is not an ideology. It's not a belief set. It's not a philosophy. It's not a here's what you ought to do. However, I do understand this is that you cannot tell people, you cannot just feed people data without telling them how to feel about it. So if you don't tell them how to feel about it, they will hate you for it. Or if they don't, then they will find some way to insert what they think that you are implying by just showing you that data in the first place. So if I go and I show, it's very dry stuff, right? If I was to go and show you like just raw data, like here, if I showed you like stats and statistics, and here's what chicks do, and here's what men do, and here's how all the pieces of the car fit back together. People don't give a shit about that. They just want to hear, like Kevin Samuels or Fresh and Fit or whatever, get her. They want that rush. They want that feel. They want to either feel as if they have been recognized, or they want to feel as if they want to feel something, right? But you can't just tell somebody, here's the data. And you know what? Go and use this. Go take this and build a better life. And fortunately, the guys that have read my books and the guys who have been I've been, over the 20 some odd years here, saved a lot of lives, have saved guys from suicide. And so in the sense that is it useful, I can show you a thread of guys up to like 1,200 guys who are, will tell you that it saved their lives. I get daily guys telling me that it's changed their lives.
Right. And mind you, remember, I said, I didn't devalue your work. I said, I think you're a smart guy. I think you're doing meaningful work.
I do. I will give you this, though. I do understand how people take this and then they want to sort of snowball it into something they want to turn it into a belief. They want to turn it into an ideology because no one told them how to feel about it. So if they don't, they're going to find some way to feel about it. And how do they do that? We're going to be black pill. We're going to be MGTOW. We're going to be doomers. We're going to be incels. We're going to be white pill. We're going to be trad. We're going to be whatever there is, right? Whatever, but those are practices that they're using the data set that the red pill represents to them, and they're taking it and they're moving it to force fitting it, let's just say, into whatever their pre-existing ideology or religion happens to be.
So 2 points. One, use the word praxology. I remember in grad school, I came across this term. In fact, I had to take an exam called the praxis based on such. I venture to say 99.9% of the persons who listen to Rollo Tomasi have not the foggiest idea of what praxology is, which is a simple word, right? So there's that, number one. And then there's number two, you're referencing red pill as a data set. Well, data's not programmatic. Data doesn't tell you what to do. And what most people are waiting on the planet Earth is instructions. That's why most persons are not.
Show me how to live. They're what is it? Sheep in search of a shepherd.
Precisely.
More or less.
And so, and for example, I don't doubt what you're saying when you say, you've impacted many young men. And that's why earlier when you were speaking, I was like, okay, well, are we coming to the point where we split between, okay, this is what red pill is, and then this is Rollo Tomasi's work, or this is what Rollo Tomasi is
that way. It's starting to get that way. I was on, it was in March of 2021. I was on Myron. I was on Fresh and Fit. And it was like one of the earlier.
I was on Myron. Hopefully not, bro. Come on, man.
So I was on there and they asked me this. They said, Rollo, do you think that the red pill is going mainstream? And my answer was the same as it is now. I hope not. I didn't. I was saying it will. I knew it was going that way, but I was like, I hope it doesn't. And I explained the reason why is because you'll have a lot of people who are bad actors who become the representatives of the quote unquote red pill because it's their own private brand. They take it and they use it as as sort of like they force fit whatever their pet ideology happens to be. That happens to be, if red pill is just like the truth, like you used to think one way and this is the new way. Well, if the way that I think of is the truth, then that must be the fucking red pill. And so usually it comes out in that sense. Like we go through cycles, by the way. This usually happens in election cycles in the United States. It happened in 2016, happened in 2020, and it's kind of happened right now. You see these guys who are very much bad actors who come in and they want to be the representatives of the red pill. And then what happens is everybody points and sputters and says, oh, that must be what those guys are about, until they have me on their show and I try to explain things. And it's like Mr. Wizard shows up and they can't like sort of digest, what I'm, like I said, a college course. Yeah. So it's, and then the other thing is,
say that you're the leader of the Red Pill?
I am one of the thought leaders of the Red Pill. I'm not like
people. Who's the top guy? Who's the Red Pill top guy?
There is no top guy. That's just
who's the top guy. Rolo, who's the top guy?
Everyone will say, and it's funny is if I say I'm the top guy, yeah, I'm the top G, right? If I say that, everybody goes, fuck you, man. Tom Likas came before you. If I say I'm the top G, they'll say, no, Patrice O'Neill came before you. No, Mencius Moldbug or whoever the fuck from the old forums and stuff. Like they'll come up with some like a name and say, somebody else beat you to it. But I will say this is that my book has been around for 10 years. If you haven't read it in 10 years, you're probably not going to read it now. So at the very least, understand if you're going to come at me, at the very least, read my work so you know what you're talking about so you can come at me. But most people don't, because their impression of what the Red Pill is whatever the fuck Pearl is spewing or whatever the hell, Andrew Tate is spewing or whoever else is spewing right now. And then they look at that and they said, those Red Pill guys. And I'm sick to death of having to clean up everybody's mess right now. I went on Dr. Phil to clean up Andrew Tate's mess, basically, because everybody they wanted Tate on that show. Essentially, is what they wanted. But I was the understudy, right? I was the proxy for Andrew Tate at that point, because they were looking for somebody. They wanted a whipping boy. They wanted somebody to pillory, and I didn't give it to them. In fact, I gave them hell. I tabled Dr. Phil in the first show, man. But it was they weren't expecting that. I'm not just some like prole that comes in there and will lay down for Dr. Phil, but. I think they got a little bit more than they bargained for. But again, I'm going on there because other people who were bad representatives of the Red Pill are now like the official representatives of the Red Pill. Right. And they might actually have at one point like used some of the ideas and some of the data and some of the stuff that I put out in the last 20 some odd years. But they use it because they use it for effect, right? They use it because they know they'll get clicks. They'll get CTR, like click through rate. They know that they'll get engagement if they go and they provoke and they stoke the more extreme aspects of it, and people respond to it. That's why you got guys who just want to have bread and circuses, man. They don't care about like the science behind it. They just want to get her. They just want to.
Let me hop in there real quick. So I think number one, you actually validate my point, which is the Red Pill is rubbish, and essentially there is no Red Pill. When you have something that's defined by many persons and they all seem to come up with a different definition, then it's too amorphous to be something.
That's it's being torn down right now, period.
So there is no Red Pill. And then number two, when I say, well, who's the top guy in the Red Pill? You're like, well, you're like, well, it could be me, but people say it's, so that whole thing, which is, and I understand humility, not something I try to showcase clearly, but
I think neither one of us, but yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that because of the lack of a leader, a person who says, hey, I'm gonna stamp my flag here, I'm the one, and I'm defining it within these bounds, that's actually what protects it. If there ever was a such thing as a Red Pill, it would be the fact that someone set it down in writing or said, hey, I'm the one who's the vanguard of this thing. That's what would protect it. And I think one of the weaknesses of those who say that they're a Red Pill, this is very common in this, and we can get into like talking about men, is this whole concept of like, well, I can't because, fill in the blank with an excuse. And this is the kind of weakness that has dragged society down. I've done a lecture called The Fall of the White Man. I mean, I hear white guys nowadays, and obviously a lot of my business partners, people I went to university with are white guys who are well-to-do white guys, come from, important families, run major corporations. And these guys are saying, oh, I can't say this. Oh, I can't do that because I'm a white guy. And I'm just like, how massive of a fall has the white man in America experienced when you used to be called a master, and now you feel like you can't share your thoughts out loud. But it's not only the white man in America, it's men globally. And the Red Pill is, as I said, a complaining oriented therapy session that has no real definition, yet people still feel like a zealot about an ideology that
become commiseration
together.
It's become commiseration. We've never had the ability to like through mass media like we do. Like in no other era could you and I be doing this right now. Where you're in Vegas right now, or where you at? Are you? Yeah, you're in Vegas. So like I'm in Rio. So like, but if you were like somewhere else in the world, there's no other time in history that we could do something like this. There's no other time in history that we would have like a forum or a platform on which we could actually even have these discussions, worldwide and globally right now. So you have to keep that in mind. But I was going to more to your point here is like I've told Myron and Fresh this. I don't think there should be a black manosphere, a white manosphere, a Latino manosphere, an Asian manosphere. It's like if you're a dude, like if you're conventionally masculine, there are universal traits that sort of like unite us as men, right? And I'm like, I think that by separating it up into like, oh, well, you guys don't understand this. This is the black red pill. This is the white red pill. This is the Asian red pill. It's like, no, man, it has to be accessible to the everyman. Otherwise, it's not. Otherwise, why even bother with it? That's when people.
I mean, the truth is incontrovertible. I agree with you there. And provincial people will always separate into tribes. We know that.
Oh, yeah. Tribalism is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that. Now, the funny thing is like, and I'm just amazed at some of the low IQ people in the chat. It's extraordinary. The internet is a strange place. I want to take you to another extraordinarily dumb people in the chat. Some, like, not the majority. It's just the dumb people always seem to be so loud. They're so loud. But let me take you to another, and I want to kind of go on a thought journey with you. As far as men go, what do you think of the concept that the married man is actually the controlled man?
Yeah. Okay. So I've been married for 27 years. That's no secret. Actually, I've been with my wife. 27 years. My daughter's 25. She just got married back in August. And I don't think that a lot of people know what to do with that. So I'm just going to throw that out there, like to give you a little bit of a preamble here for a second. When I have traditional conservatives come at me, particularly like the women these days, or like say somebody from like Daily Wire, like Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles or whoever, they want to paint the red pill as those red pill guys hate on marriage and everything. I'm like, no, dude, I have been married for 27 years. If I didn't think marriage was a good thing, then I wouldn't be there. I've always said this though, is like I think that marriage in its conventional sense as a formalization of like socially enforced monogamy, I think it's a bedrock of Western civilization, right? Monogamous
marriage is a bedrock of Western civilization.
Bedrock of Western civilization, but
not the family, but marriage.
Well, okay, but that's downstream from it. So if you're going to, so when people say, well, why do you shit all over marriage? Well, it's like I don't. I shit all over the way we do it now. The way we fucked everything up when it comes to marriage. I was just talking to James Sexton, who's the divorce attorney. I'm sure you've probably seen him like floating around like Lex Friedman and Soft White Underbelly. And I think people were surprised during that conversation when we're talking about, do you still believe in marriage? Do you still believe in love? He's like, yeah, I want to. I would love to. I think it's a fantastic thing. I think men and women are better together than we are apart. We are an innate, natural, evolved complements to one another. Whether you want to say it's like divinely created or whatever, or evolved, doesn't make any difference. We're still complements. And we can see how that works in sort of like brain architecture and just like my strengths make up for my wife's weaknesses and vice versa, right? And so we're better together than we are apart. But like I can't be red pill because I'm married, but I can't be married because I'm red pilled, right? So if I'm talking to like traditional conservatives, they don't know what to do with me because I'm Roll Tomasi, right? And I've been married for 27 years. I have a fantastic marriage with my wife. We still have sex as often as we possibly can.
Monogamous.
And I'm not closed on my end, closed on her end. Okay. And I understand, like, I've just been getting into this, and maybe we could talk about destiny a little bit here too. Is like, what I'm seeing right now when it comes to marriage is there's really a 20th century way of thinking about how marriage ought to be, and a 21st century way of how we do marriage now. So when I look at, say, somebody like Justin Waller, or Mike Sartain for that matter, it's closed on their girl's end, but it's open on their end. So, or maybe you could say this is the Andrew Tate model.
I don't want to talk about your business partners or your colleagues because, obviously you there's a limited number of things that you can say, and neither of them are here. So I don't want to talk about your colleagues. But I've seen people, and it looks like they're paying for these women to be around. So it's like, I don't really this whole it's closed
put it
on
this
my
way,
end,
I
open
mean,
on their end.
I can tell you with 100% assurity that like Mike is with Kylie right now, and I know exactly what their lifestyle is.
Listen, as I said, I'm not going to talk about your business partner.
Anyway, like more to the point though is like there's that model, right? There's the guys who have one chick and then they have side pieces, right?
Okay.
That's one model. The other model is what I have, right? Is close on my end, close on my wife's end, right?
Yeah.
Then there is the Destiny and Melina model, which is open on her end and open on his end, and we see where that goes pretty much most of the time, right? So there's that, and then there's the other model, but I should point out as well, and this is actually the most common model, as what you were saying. If you're married, are you then not an indentured servant? Well, let me explain to you why we have that concept of that. Today, if a woman is on Instagram and she's like showing off her body, or maybe she's on OnlyFans, or maybe she's been on Instagram. Instagram is the #1 dating site on planet Earth, not Tinder, Instagram. So if you have sexy pictures of yourself and you're advertising yourself and advertising your sexual availability on Instagram, women are the advertisers. When it comes to intersexual dynamics, men are the pitchmen. They have to qualify. They have to say, hey, this is what I'm about. Here's why you should choose me. Blah, blah, blah. They're salesmen.
I'm trying not to interrupt you, but I asked you, is the married man the controlled man?
Well, this is it. This is the controlled man. Okay. The woman, on the other hand, is the advertiser. The men are the pitchmen. The woman is the advertiser. When you get into a relationship, if that man is still continuing to sell himself on the open market, we call him a cheater. We say it's infidelity, right?
Yeah.
But if a woman continues to advertise herself and advertise her sexual availability and still continues to show her sexy pictures, doesn't take down her OnlyFans, doesn't take down her Instagram, she is still advertising herself, but we don't call that cheating. We call that revenue stream. We call that an OnlyFans. We call that whatever it is. But really what that is it's open on her end and closed on his end. And that is the man, what you were just talking about right now, is the guy who thinks he's in a closed on her end, closed on his end, but she's still advertising her sexuality. So it's still open on her end, or at least the appearance of availability is open on her end. And that's where you get the guy who is sort of like doesn't know what to do with himself and is actually controlled because he doesn't have any options. And he doesn't understand, like, she's not actually playing by the same rule book that he thinks that she's playing by.
And I don't want to speak for you, but I'd say you gave the explanation as to how you arrived at your conclusion.
Right.
And it would seem as though in most cases you're saying, yes, the married man is the controlled man, particularly because today females continue advertising what should suggest availability.
And that's in a social and personal sense. There's also the state that's involved as well. So you can't out alpha the state, right? When you get into, especially in Western societies right now, you get into a situation where, like, if you get into a marriage contract, I got my fourth book, anyways, in my book on religion, I talk about marriage in there quite a bit, and it's what's called an unconscionable contract, meaning that no one would enter into it.
I don't want to go through that because I think we all have the same view on that, and I think it's where we split that there's some knowledge to be gained, and I think we're quite similar on this bit about marriage being the married man being the controlled man. What I think is quite curious is this piece right here. So, and I tried to sketch this out when I had some time, but let's say you have a triangle like so, right? At the bottom, you have the males who are getting cheated on by women. They're dealing with a woman, she's dealing with other guys, let's say, simply put. And let's say that's about 25% of guys, right? We'll fix the numbers later. We're just going to section it off. Then in the middle, the great majority of guys, let's say they end up married, which is maybe not the case increasingly. These are the guys who are faithful, which is suggested to be a merit in today's society. They're faithful to the woman. These are also guys who are generally nonviolent. Then at the top, let's say the 5%, you have the emperors, the pharaoh, the celebrity, the true value man.
High value man.
Whatever they want to call it. The men who exercise their choice of women. Honestly, they tell her, I got you and I got her, and that's just what it is. And they're not called a cheater, and they're not harassed or, called a bad person by the women they're dealing with. It is accepted.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that the great majority of men will never be able to get into that 5%. But if they could behave as that 5%, they would. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would. I would. I'll break it down in actually the statistical numbers. Is that
Don't go
women,
through the statistics right now
well,
because I don't think no one numbers don't persuade
cares. No one
anyone.
anyways, the vast majority of men are beta males. 80% of men are deemed unattractive by women.
Yes.
20%. That doesn't mean 20% are attractive. It just means they're not unattractive. Of that 20%, and this is straight out of Dr. David Buss's work here, 4.5% of those guys are the guys you just mentioned. 4.5%. I wouldn't even say 5. I would say 4.5% because that's really what it boiled down to. Is those are the men who are attractive enough that women will initiate something with. They want to get what they want to fuck that guy. They want to get with that guy. That's the top of your pyramid right there. Is the 4.5%ers. Then there's the 20%ers, and then there's the 80% of guys who are just basically invisible. And so it's better for the majority of guys to convince everyone that there ought to be one man and one woman, and that's your soulmate, and that's the way the God wants it to be. And that's and if you're not, you're a very bad person, because what it's doing is it's a form of intrasexual combat. It disqualifies those guys at the top. If you can disqualify a Justin Waller, who's one of the 4.5%, if you can disqualify that guy at the top,
let me challenge you here.
Convince him to think that he shouldn't be, like, he'd feel bad.
He shouldn't take more than his fair share.
Then what does that do? It eliminates him as a competitor.
So now let me add in a couple elements that are often forgotten in the conversation, I think, because it's perhaps too Machiavellian. So let's say you're stuck in this middle area, this unfortunate gray area where you're a part of that 80% of men who get into the marriage monogamous contract because it's their best chance. Within the context of this monogamous situation with a given female, and this is removing the state, just dealing with that woman as the culture has been construed based on female domination. And that is only possible because of the removal of things like violence. When a man agrees not to be violent, and it's just, there's just like a blanketed agreement that no matter what she says or does, if she's unfaithful, if she's unruly, if she refuses sex, if she refuses to cook, I agree to always not be violent. Now, mind you, I'm not a violent person. I'm not promoting domestic violence. But when you remove that off of the table, this is the start in which the woman is allowed to dominate the relationship because of the goods that are exchanged between the male and the female. She has the more powerful hand.
True.
Against the beta male.
I would, yeah, exactly. I would, in fact, I would even take that one step further. I would say that if it's not even so much the violence part of it, it is the taking away the rights, taking away fundamental authority from men, really. Because when you talk about, like, I mean, the supreme authority amongst all human is violence, right? But then there's other degrees of authority as well. And one of the issues that I lock horns with tradcons about all the time is, women will be better women if men would just be better men. And I'm like, well, no, that's bullshit, because what you're saying is, like, I got to take on more responsibility. And the problem is responsibility without authority is slavery. That is literally the definition of slavery. Okay. So if I am responsible for all of this shit, but I don't have the authority to affect those things that I need to be responsible for, I'm fucked. I'm basically a slave. The inverse of this, of course, is tyranny. So authority without responsibility is tyranny. So if you look at, so where do we sit in gender dynamics between those, like tyranny and slavery right there? I'm not saying all men are like born to be slaves, but I'm saying that when it comes to responsibility versus authority, the one place that I see it, especially tradcons, is I see them falling down, is that they don't talk about authority, in imbuing men with some kind of authority, because they can only be responsible for so much. So
let me destroy Red Pill real quick. Okay, so this is why you guys are circular and unproductive. The Red Pill is circular and unproductive. Number one, like, for example, there's a lot of goofballs in the chat. They say, like, does philosophy have a leader? Does fill in the blank have a leader? And it's just like, oh my God, you guys are so stupid. It's almost not worth explaining anything to you. It's almost not worth it. But for example, when you think of effective organizations, or even on a basic level, you look at teams. Does a team have a leader? Yes. A football team on the field has a quarterback, off the field has a coach. If you look at corporations, they have a CEO. If you look at armies, they have a general. Yes. Effective
Hierarchy.
organizations have leaders. Furthermore, most red pillars are cuck beta males, partly damn near homosexual. How do we know? They think in effeminate ways and they're scared to take action. These are incels that spend time at home beating off and engaging in escapism. Well, how do we know? How do we know they think like women? Women, as we kind of alluded to earlier, they tend to be more egalitarian. When you're egalitarian, you like flat organizations, no leader. And because the red pill guys are so weak and wimpy, none of them step up and say, I'm the leader, because they're too vaginal to step up and say, I will take criticism, I will take responsibility. And what's more, like the men of the past that we esteem, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, I will also slap off the helmet of anyone who would object. I'm the one. We're scared to do that. That's why we will not have the Greek heroes of yesterday, because these guys are vaginal and they're like, no, it doesn't need a leader. That's female thinking. Women play games, or excuse me, female children play games where there's no hierarchy. I spoke about this on the Fresh and Fit podcast. Hopscotch. How do you win? You don't win. What's the organizational structure? What's the hierarchy? There isn't one. So we have these effeminate males go into the red pill space. They're weak. They're beta males. They're incels. They're effeminate and don't even know it. And what's worse, when they're talking about, oh, well, red pill's not this, not that. Red pill is not what we need it to be if we actually want societal change. A red pillar complains about alimony, child support, all these things, all the rights that they lost. But then you say, well, what does red pill do? Where's your headquarters? What's the organization? Who's the leader? What's the action? What are you going to do? Never anything, because it's about understanding. Red pill is a bookish experiment on understanding, but they'll never do anything. So when you talk about the TradCon folks, they're idiots and they're not actually conservative. They've not read Burke. They don't understand anything about true conservatism. Conservatism is a part of a fully integrated thing. That's one thing. But red pill can't even have a conversation with tradcons, because tradcons are within a political context, which means that they're a part of a political structure wherein action is required to even exist. They're a part of the political spectrum. Red pillars is just a perspective of incels who complain, yet you might say, what is one action that we can identify that the red pill has done last year or that they're going to do next year? There is no action. That's precisely why men will stay in the same place, because there's no leader, there's no action, there's no methodology. It's just academic analysis endlessly. And this is a perfect thing for those who are low IQ but think they're smart, those who are unaccomplished but think they're high value, those who are not getting vagina but desperately want some. They want to keep on like studying and studying and studying because they're feminine. They never take action. So red pill is perfect because it keeps them in a group of people who affirm their thinking and their lack of action. So it's like, what would red pill ever accomplish? Nothing. There's not even a leader, and they're too effeminate to even come across that concept.
Yes.
We don't need a leader. Come on, stop it.
I don't know. Okay, so do we need a leader? Do we need another Andrew Tate? Do we need another Pearl Davis? Do we need another, I don't know, Kevin
Those
Sanders?
are profiteers. We all know those are profiteers.
Right, of course they are. But again,
those are profiteers.
We're dealing with, but see, that's what crops up every time this conversation comes up. So again, there still has to be a hierarchy. There still has to be the general, the lieutenant, and on down. I think that's male way of thinking. You are correct in this. I'll give you this. For men tend to think in hierarchies, women think in the round, right? In egalitarian,
like no leader,
communitarianism, right? Yeah, because they're looking to men for leadership is exactly why that is. And if you put women into positions of organizing society, that's exactly where we're at right now. That's exactly what they will do, is they will try to organize it in as communitarian and as socialist a way as they possibly can manage, because that seems natural to them. For men, it seems natural to have a leader and to have like a lieutenant and on down the chain of command, right? And we do that in our business. We do that in our sports teams.
Why are the red pill alpha males too scared? Like, why wouldn't you step up and say, I'm the leader, this is the way it goes, and this is what we need to do?
Well, I pretty much did that on Dr. Phil is what I did. Because I was saying, look, if you go and you look at what Andrew Tate was talking about, you look at literally the Pearl, who I hate, with a purple passion, everything she says is a derivative, or if not verbatim, out of my books. Everyone, okay, so I'm not going to sit here and say I am the beginning and the end of the fucking red pill. Okay.
I mean,
But I will say
Rollo, look, either talk your shit or don't talk your shit because you're talking to the big homie, man.
I understand.
I say the wildest stuff on earth. Anything you say is not no one's about to get offended. But I asked you straight out. I said, who's the top guy? And the thing that bothers me is I would love to be able to collaborate with red pill guys so that we can get something done. Because I'll tell you what Marquett Devon Burton is actually about. Marquett Devon Burton is actually about putting money into places where it can help people live better lives. Marquett Devon Burton is actually about reestablishing patriarchy. Marquett Devon Burton is looking at the fact that increasingly we have women over-enrolled in college. How does that change our society for the worse? Then they're over-enrolled in law school. Then they become attorneys. Then they become politicians, legislators, and judges. And we continue getting screwed over as men. So my question is, how do we make sure that women, you like equity? Let's get 50-50 enrollment in college. Why? Because those are the people who run the political future of this country. Those are the ones who legislate. Those are the ones who decide how much your child support is actually going to be. So I'm saying, how do we get to work on that? But I can't even talk boss to boss because the red pill guys are so damn effeminate. They're like, no, are you the leader? Are you the leader? Okay, let's play Rochambeau for it. Like, we're going to Rochambeau. Like, it's like, goddamn, who's a boss here?
Well, I'm going to also point out the fact that a lot of the guys that you're talking about right now is this generation as well. So it's a generational thing here. So if you're looking at like the guys from the latter half of the millennials and certainly everyone in Gen Z that's coming out right now, most definitely. That's why we're talking about incels right now. When I was just got off of Twitter and had a conversation with someone who was talking about who actually was an insider anyways to all of this, is that there are NGO, non-governmental organizations that would really like to turn incels into the new boogeyman. They want to turn incels into the next, equate us with ISIS and terrorists. Homeland Security would very much like to, because it's easy for them. Because what it is it's an easy paycheck. If there is no boogeyman, no one gets paid, and they can't talk about Islamic terrorism right now, and they can't talk about white nationalism right now. So who's left? Oh, let's talk about the incels, and let's go and see how we can turn these guys into what we would like them to be. Here's the problem with that is when we're talking about red pill guys or those incel guys, who the fuck are we talking about? That's what I want to know, because who gets up in the fucking morning and looks at themselves in the mirror and goes, you know what, I'm a really fucking loser. I'm an incel, right? I mentioned this on my last show as one of the reasons why we even use the term incel, or even when we use red pill, because it's easy. It's a blanket statement. We can say, okay, all losers, they're red pill. All losers, those guys are incels. It's easier to say. It rolls off the tongue a whole lot better if you say incel instead of you're a loser. Right? You're a loser. You're a perma-virgin. You're never going to get laid. You're never going to make anything yourself. You're never going to do anything. Yeah, you will, but nobody else wants to, right? So it's a nice way of saying you're a perma-virgin. No one would want to fuck you, basically, is what it comes down to. And everybody can easily sort of like get behind that, because women don't want to have anything to do with those guys, and they don't want to have them approaching anyone on the streets, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. So who the fuck are we talking about? So I asked this question. I said, okay, what percentage of the population do you think are quote unquote red pill, or quote unquote, I wouldn't even like really equate those two, but like to say incels. And I looked this up, and according to DHS, statistics, it's somewhere around 100,000 in the United States, which is 0.007% of the population is what we're talking about. There are fewer incels than there are trans people on planet Earth right now.
Right, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying though, where does all this red pill stuff add up to? Like, what does it add up to? You see, like, if someone says, Marquette, what does your work add up to? I say, well, that's a good question. Then I would just run it down. Like, this is what it adds up to. This is our goal. This is our approach. Like, for example, one of the things that is causing more guys to be incels is the following. The fact that the government will support a woman and a child financially if the man chooses not to. Whereas before, if the government chooses to not support the woman and the child, she must rely on a guy. Therefore, she is deeply incentivized to stick with a man, to not break a marriage, and to not be promiscuous. So we see that it is clear that we need to rearrange the political structure that itself will remove guys from being incels. But the problem is they get stuck on academic analysis rather than practical action. Motherfuckers over here talking about praxology instead of what's the next step.
Would you say so? It's paralysis by analysis, right? Yeah. So basically, you're just sitting there navel gazing. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I separate red pill from the practice. So are the people that you're talking about, are they losers? Yeah, they're practicing being a loser. That doesn't in no way delegitimize what the red pill as a praxeology has to say. So if I'm going to use red pill to be a loser, that's one thing. If I'm going to use the red pill, and I've got plenty of guys, like plenty of testimonies of guys saying this, who saved their lives, who actually canceled their date with suicide because they read the Rational Mail. They understand red pill. They
I
go,
don't
you
want
know
to
what?
interrupt you on
Never
that. I
was
think
never
it's good that
articulated.
guys don't often. I'm not sure about that, but I think mostly, generally, it's probably
I
good
can show
that,
you
that
a
guys.
thread where I have at least 1,200 guys telling me exactly that.
Yeah, they averted taking themselves out, and I think that's good. Like that's a credit to anyone. I think that's fantastic. But when you, as a real intellectual and a man of action who wants to set things right, such that here's a better thing than stopping one man from killing himself, to stop the cause of that, such that a multitude of men would never consider it. The
Yes.
greater thing than stopping a man from killing himself is stopping the root cause and then preventing a multitude of those men from even considering it. So what
And-
I'm challenging is,
And stopping it,
how does the
giving
red
them-
pill,
giving them
One second.
accurate information. That's
How-
how it does that.
what's that?
By giving them accurate information, by telling them and articulating things for them and showing them that there is the old rule book that that everyone else was playing by is not actually the rule book. And you need to start making some changes in your life. I talk about this all the time, man. It's like, I tell guys, you have to take action. I mean, it's not enough just to have the theory of the red pill. You have to put it into practice. Now, I'm not going to insult the people who follow me or read my work by saying, here's 12 rules for life. Here's 7 things. Here's the way you ought to. It's not one size fits all.
Like Jordan
I am a 55-year-old white guy in Reno, Nevada. Okay. I'm not going to tell some kid in like Seoul, Korea, or somebody in like, Kenya or something like that. Oh yeah, it worked for me here, so it ought to work for you. That's the Andrew Tate way of thinking about things. Because when people ask me what makes a high value man, Rollo, they think, oh, Lamborghini, a hot piece of ass, somebody yacht parties in Miami, that kind of stuff. And I say, the high value guy is the guy that other men want to be and other women want to fuck. And if that happens to be the guy who is the leader of the township in some fishing village on the coast of Chile,
right.
He might have a pickup truck, but nobody else has a fucking pickup truck in that fishing village. And so it's the mindset. Alpha is that mindset, right? It's contextualized, and people think, oh, you're being wishy-washy. No, I'm not. I'm just like, I'm putting this into perspective. So just because I live in Vegas or I live in Miami or live somewhere else, that's my context for what a high value guy is. But if I live in a third world country, that context changes, but the principle doesn't change. The foundations doesn't change.
That's a good point about the definition of high value men. I don't think that's a great point about how we reestablish patriarchy and ensure that a higher number of persons, male and female, can live a happy, fulfilling life. I do want to come back to 2 things you alluded to. We're gonna hit some.
I would like to know what the process is. I love it when we get like revolutionaries and the people say, yeah, okay, well, once the revolution is over, how do we restructure? What do you think we're going to do? Show me the plan afterwards. And nobody has a fucking plan.
Okay, we have Splash said, peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints.
Jordan says, question for Rollo. Perhaps the praxeology makes this question irrelevant, but does your personal red pill leave any practical room to begin something serious with a woman in her 30s?
Of course.
Settled. Okay.
Major Mind and Soul says, subjectivity is the lens we see each things through. So by your definition, Rollo, red pill is subjective by default. Thus, how can we subjectively be used in a quest for truth?
How can subjectivity be used in a quest for truth? Go ahead.
Part 2 is what is considered red pill and is different depending on who you ask. By comparison, the 3-sentence Bible is the same no matter who you ask. Thank you both for your time.
Yeah, well, it should be. Again, we're talking about a college course versus a bumper sticker is what we're talking about. We're talking about like, I'm not saying you and personally, I'm just saying like people want simplicity, right? I mean, they want that emotional connection immediately. They want
you have to see here, Roland. Let me tell you what's crazy about you guys. Take that off the screen real quick. And this is amazing. Everyone pay attention to this. And Rolo, I think you'll benefit from this if you actually like really take this to heart. The red pill theorist, yourself included, you guys get complex, sophisticated, pedantic, and you say, oh, it's praxeology and it's deep and it's a college course of knowledge, which is ironic because I used to be in that business. The overwhelming majority of persons in America fail out of college. So to create anything designed around a college model is foolish, but it's ironic that someone who bases all of their thinking on data and intelligence is not using the data. The consumer that you're speaking to is not a scholar. Hence, you should design something like I've designed, which is simple, easy to digest in every language, which is precisely why Steve Jobs is brilliant, because Steve Jobs said, rather than go the route of the other fools in the PC space and create infinite variety, I'm going to design something beautifully that can mostly satisfy the persons who would use it. So he created one iPhone. He designed it as best as could be done, and it didn't have a lot of access for the end user to mess up things. On an iPhone, you don't have a lot of control. A lot of decisions are already made for you. On an Android, it actually is more similar to a PC computer. You have more control over settings. That is by design that Steve Jobs, as a leader, acknowledged the type of person he's dealing with, which is not the brightest star in the sky. So he made it accessible and functional, which is why Apple is cutting edge and best known not for innovation, not for technology, but for design. You must design around the consumer such that you can achieve an end goal. The problem of the red pill is that it's run by nerds. And the issue with nerds is nerds are not people of action. They're people of thought. They exist mostly here in the mind, which is why the revolution will never leave outside of their brain and manifest in the real world.
I have something to share with you here real quick.
You wanted full screen with us small in the
There
corner?
you go. That's fine. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. I use this as a sort of a model, sort of to talk about what you were explaining here in towards the end of my fourth book, which is The Rational Male Religion. Okay, so first panel here.
So the rational male of religion?
No, it's my fourth book. I'll show you in a minute.
Okay. And mind you, everyone, his links are in the description. You click that first link, it'll take you to his author page with all of his books. If you want to check those out, obviously very bright gentleman. Go ahead.
Okay, so my son, to win in combat, you must let go of your conscious self. Why, master? Because motor memories are stored as implicit memories, not declarative memories. Trying to use your conscious brain for motor tasks is basically accessing the wrong database. And then he looks very confused. He says, can you rephrase that as some mystical wisdom? Dwell within your inner inness, Thank you, wise master. It was a comic that I used towards the end of my my book there. And really what that is it's a metaphor for the fact that you still have to have the fucking knowledge. You have to know what you're talking about before you can sort of simplify it into mystical wisdom. When you're talking about, I forget who it was, I think it was like Isaac Asimov or something, says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And until we figure out what it is, and we say, it's not magic anymore.
That's right.
That's the problem that we're having right now is we still want fucking magic. We still want it to be simple. We still want it to be something that's easily digestible. We want mystical wisdom for something that is a very technical process. And that's the difference between what I think was it Brett Weinstein who said something like the difference between metaphorical truth and actual objective truth. Okay. So, for instance, like like you say, a porcupine, stay away from porcupines because they can shoot their quills at you, right? Okay. Now, that's objectively untrue. A porcupine cannot shoot its quills at you. Right. Okay. But it's best for you to believe that. Correct. There's some folktale about how the porcupine shoots his quills, because if you got a fucking porcupine's quill, it hurts like hell, right? So the metaphorical truth is it useful for you to believe that a porcupine can shoot its quills? Yes, absolutely. So you kids will stay away from it and you keep the dog away from it too, right? Yeah. But is it actually objectively true?
No. And here's the problem. That's the problem. When you have true nerds, Rollo, when you have true nerds, a true nerd is like, you need to understand astrophysics. And they want everyday people to understand astrophysics, but a leader who has intelligence but is practical, they say, okay, I could explain to you the physiology, anatomy, and biology of getting shredded abdominals. I could explain all of that to you, or I could just make sure that you exercise for 30 minutes a day and you do this number of ab crunches. And that's leadership, because you know who you're dealing with. And for those who can comprehend, for you, we have the book. But for everyone else, we have the meme, because we're in a meme society.
Yeah.
You see, the problem is this. Today, we're giving liberal arts education to people who are dimwits, which is to say you have people studying something called political science. This is an abstract thing. You should not have people in this discipline who are not very smart. You have people in the discipline of philosophy. I don't think most of them are going to become an epistemologist. Those majors should be capped off to like 10 people per university, because most of the time you're saying these things, Rolo, there are people in the chat who aren't bright enough to understand. And I challenge you, that cartoon you showed, people are still right now like, what the hell is Rolo talking about? Rolo crazy as hell. So the point is this: a part of intelligence is being smart enough to know when you're being too smart. To be smart enough to know, if I'm talking to a dumb broad, I'm not about to ask her what her views are on the Fountainhead, because she doesn't even know that's a book. If I'm talking to a smart woman who's a Harvard educated woman and she's an executive at a Fortune 500, then I can engage her with that conversation. But the problem is that nerds lack social skills, and they have such poor social skills that rather than adjusting to the outside world, which is what leaders do, adjusting the message so that it can be received, that's the purpose of communication, such that the other person gets what you're saying. But instead, in their own narcissism, see, this is the male red pill version of narcissism. They're so self-absorbed in their worldview and in their own intelligence that they have to show everyone how smart they are. You see me, I'm plenty smart, but if I'm talking to a simple man, I speak like a simple man. And when I'm talking to a Korean, I say, 안녕하세요. I speak in Korean. There is no need for me to speak in a language people don't understand, because it will never help the people, though it might help my ego with me feeling smart. And that is the big issue with red pill, is that it goes nowhere because it's so hung up in the air.
So you want a leader is what you want. You want somebody to motivate and kick people.
No, I am the leader. I don't want a leader. I'm asking. I'm talking on the red pill side.
You want a leader to arise from the red pill so that will motivate all the losers to not be losers anymore.
Number one, I've never said that they're losers. I don't think that they're losers. I think many of them are smart.
So let's just say to change their lives from being like lethargic and listless and lazy, and to give them something useful, right? Again,
I don't think that's actually necessarily the case with him. I think many of them are, doing the right things, but they're not getting the correct outcome because the society they're in is so perverse. I think there are young men who probably follow you, might consider themselves red pill, and are still an incel despite having done all the right things. And I think sometimes you're saying that the right things that they did, they were given the wrong playbook. I think in many cases it's the correct playbook, but the society is sick because the political structure and the government has enforced an ill culture on us. So we have to go to correcting that, because I tell you what, there's some guys, they can be in good shape and they can be 5'7" and make a decent income and will remain an incel until the society is reorganized such that their demographic is valued, because we don't have every woman rushing toward the pharaoh, the emperor, the celebrity, and the 6'8" kickboxing champion.
Do you not think that they're already predisposed to want the highest value guy? Do you not already think?
You say that you're referring to women, correct?
Well, yeah, women. Sorry. Do you
and
not?
I don't think it's predisposed. I think it's genetically determined. Yeah. However, when you look at the sheer numbers of, you have 100 men and you have 100 women, even when guys like me overconsume, there still are a number of women that rightly should be left over to men who are reasonably productive. And those men are not even getting their fair share at those women today.
So you think there's a deficit of? Is that because of men, or do you think that's because women are only sharing the top? Like, I mean, we have this. I mean, we talk about this.
Women are sharing the top, guys, but here's the thing.
Women would rather share a successful alpha than be saddled with a
subconsciously, not consciously, subconsciously, and that's only a portion of women. But even let's say the average guys who fit in that middle category, if they manage to get married, they're basically losing within the context of the marriage. Like, you have guys who are married to women who won't have sex with them. You have guys who are married to women who won't cook for them. You have guys who are married to women who expect the man to be a gentleman, pay all the bills, pull out the seat, open the car door. And at the same time, he has to be submissive, and she's not being a lady. We have the definition of a gentleman is so clear, but the definition of a lady is missing, and he has no tools and no recourse to enforce his side of the contract, his benefits in that contract.
Well, okay, so I got two questions for it. So number one is this. and we'll actually let me get to the first one first.
Sure.
I was watching this video, a man and woman, and the man is having this discussion with his, I guess, his girlfriend, right?
Okay.
And she was explaining to him how she was not going to become marriageable. She's not going to cook or clean or do any of this other stuff until he can prove that he is marriageable. Like he has to go jump. He has got to be on top of his game. He's got to have his business together. He's got to have his education down. He's got to have his physique down. He's got like all this checklist of things, and he has to qualify before she will even consider becoming like a submissive, the traditionally submissive, a marriageable woman. And he's explaining this. So I have to go and become the best version of myself before you will take it upon yourself to actually, show me what do you bring to the table. You won't even have that conversation until I've made myself into something. So why am I going to bother with you, who's an unproven commodity, and I can go find somebody else who is a proven commodity instead of that. My other question for you is this: is that
so what was the first question?
So first question is this: is do you think is that as far as like societally, if it's Western societally, do you think it's because that women have this sort of sense of entitlement and that this like the women identify with that chick, right? That one woman is like, I'm not going to become anything more than I have to be until I've got the guy who's like the perfect guy. He's got to be 6 feet tall. He's got to have, 6-pack abs. He's got to have 6-figure income. And the other thing is, so what's the solution? What do you think is the solution? What do you think you should do? What's the best practice?
The question just to make sure that I got the question.
To affect changing women's minds about being about actually making themselves marriageable.
Yes. So let me just make sure I understand the question so that I can actually answer the one that you're asking me. So you described a dynamic wherein the woman says that she's not going to do the things that show she's worthy of marriage until he is the man that she believes is worthy of marrying. How do we remove that mentality from the female in the West? Is that correct?
Well, I mean, is that not what you were getting at in what you were previously saying there? Like, I'm
trying to make sure that like that's the question you're asking.
So, I mean, the solution to get guys to stop being incels, red pill, what losers, is to have women that will incentivize guys not to be losers. Okay, well, how do you go about doing that?
No, I did not say that, and I don't think that is the case. So one, I don't think most guys are losers. I don't think the overwhelming majority of guys in the West are losers. That's not true, especially not in America. I've traveled around the world, and American guys have a lot of hustle. They definitely tend to spend less time at leisure than other guys you'll see in other parts of the West. So I think American guys are, reasonably legit. I think guys in Germany, Switzerland are reasonably legit. Obviously guys in China, Japan, Korea, they tend to be reasonably productive. Can't say the same thing about folks in Southeast Asia, but there are levels of diversity. But here's the point. The point is this. Number one, when you're looking at that female that was expressing those ideas, the funny thing is that the Black American, they think that they're unique, or they think they've come up with their own ideas. Mostly they have not, because they really haven't had a proper intellectual class. So much of what the Black woman operates on is the same thing that the white woman operates on, which was her teacher. And the white woman has taught her gender feminism, not equity feminism, gender feminism, which is the false idea that the male and the female are not equal, but the same, which is different. Both are bad concepts, but that they are the same. We can do the same things, which is untrue. So the Black female, having mostly grown up in an illegitimate family, and increasingly white families are illegitimate too, but she's not grown up with a father at all. So ironically, whereas the white woman was rebelling against the white male patriarch, which was a real thing, the Black woman's rebelling against the Black male patriarch, which never was a real thing, at least not in her existence on earth, right? Because Black families have disintegrated since Jim Crow fell apart, which is ironic. Now, so the Black female and the white female largely the same, which is to say unruly. And they're under this idea that they're of such inherent value that the male has to display value. A part of that is not us not actually having basic fundamental biological understandings. The first thing I would do is start in primary education to teach them the realities of biology, which is something I've spoken to before, which number one, a female might start menstruating in upper elementary, middle school. Great. Now you can have kids. Your peak of physical health of a kid, 16. You in your late 20s start to have certain instances of genetic defects if you were to continue having kids. So first off, love, whereas you're over here like, oh, I'm going to wait till I'm 30, then I'm going to settle down and all this nonsense. Well, that doesn't agree with biology or your biological clock. That being the case, you should know that your value is waning rapidly. Hence, it is upon you to pick a guy who's willing to deal with you for the long run and settle down more quickly than a man. Once they understand that, then the whole ball game is different and the game has to be played faster. Right now they're playing they think it's baseball, 9 innings. No, love, really, it's actually basketball and you got 4 quarters. You don't have 9 innings, okay?
Well, I would argue it's a lifetime is what it is.
What's that?
Planning ahead for a lifetime is what it is.
These chicks are?
Well, so the way I explain this in my second book, which is Preventive Medicine, is like there's a timeline in there, really, like what you can expect from like women when it comes to like, say, a certain period of, phases of maturity, right? And so like between like 18 and 28 is what we call the hoe phase, right? Or the party years or whatever. And that's usually the time at which a woman hits her like, peak sexual market value years where she has the most agency. She has the most power. It's when guys will just give her the fucking world, right? Well, that wanes as closer she gets to 28, 29, 30, 31 years old, which is what I call the epiphany phase right there. And then that's right about the time that men tend to, start to come into their own. They start to hit their stride right around their early 30s and mid 30s, right? So when we're talking about the window of opportunity for women to have that internal conversation that you're just talking about right now between 18 and 28. First of all, that's a real tall order because everyone wants to give them, if they're hot and the world is their oyster. That's one thing. The other thing though is that you've got 10 years to consolidate on long-term security that's going to hope you live till you're 90, right? Until for the rest of your life. And again, you want to talk about red pill stuff? I was just talking about this very recently, is that women need insight. They need to be, grand strategy. They need to understand where they're at and what they're doing right then and right there. If you are 23 years old, you are at the peak of your sexual marketability. You are as hot as you're going to be, and you are going to be as marketable, sexually marketable to get that long-term security out of a man at that point. And if you don't realize that, you're gradually going to realize that by the time you get to about 33, when you realize that your 33-year-old self cannot compete with your 23-year-old.
And so here's the thing. We agree here. We agree here. And we mostly agree because these are what's called the facts, right? This is biology.
True.
There's no room to disagree, although women still disagree on this one. Now, when I say, okay, well, what are we doing on the side of the ism? So I have the lady saints, right? We have a whole section, just like we have a section of men, we have a section of women. And these are the kind of education we put them through, and we encourage them toward the things that are going to be best for them. And I will tell you, marriage, especially as it's conceived in Western society, is an institution for women. This is not an institution for men. This is an institution to benefit the female. If I had a daughter, Lord, I would be telling her to get married. I'd be so behind it. I'd be doing everything I could to get her married. If I had a son, I'd be telling him, son, play that field, son, play that field, get everything you can get, and then settle down with 3 or 4 women, make as many children as possible. It's going to benefit you in the long term. Radically different programs for the best interest of that individual male or female. But see, my point is this: practicality. How do you actually get these things done?
How do you initiate that? Yeah.
Well, we have the lady saints. We're giving actual education. And we're giving education, training, and conditioning. And that's how you perform in the world, right? It's like you can't go play basketball unless you've had a coach and you've had some practice. Then you can survive in the game. Conversely, how does the red pill, like we share this perspective, but from a red pill perspective, how have you implanted that in women? Well, there's a disconnect. You have the knowledge, but there's no practice. There's no imparting of this to the female because it's just here for you guys.
So when people ask me this, when are you going to write the rational female, Rollo? And my answer to them is it's already written. It's called The Rational Male. It will teach you how men think and how women interact with that. Right now, could I go out there and say, okay, here's your own nature, ladies. Am I going to be that presumptuous to do that? I don't know. Maybe I will at some point. But the long and the short of it is that the like I said, the Chilton Manual of intersexual dynamics is already there. So my question is this, is like, how do you institute that? How do you make that happen? You have the revolution, and then what happens after the revolution? So we have this conversation all the time. Like you can go and look at, if you look at Myron and Fresh, hell, you were on the After Hour show. Yeah. Like you're looking at the women that are there. I'm doing Access Vegas, there's whatever podcast and everything else. We're looking at this, and it's holding women accountable, right? Holding women's feet to the fire. And
Oh,
if you go and you
awesome.
look at every freaking short, every reel, every, you know, TikTok video, every like 45-second clip that's out there, the ones that do the best are the ones where it seems like that woman it's like comeuppance, right? It's like, oh, she's getting her, she's being held
It's getting
accountable.
claimed.
And I'm saying that we're what, 3 years into at least Myron and Fresh anyways.
Yeah.
And are women learning? Are women, you know, getting together and saying, you know what, these guys were right. We really need to organize and start changing our minds about ourselves. And we
That's
need
criticism of the red pill, then, right?
Mhm.
I said that's criticism of the red pill.
Well, no, I'm saying that even if we were like, as Myron and Fresh are doing, right? Even if you are presenting this to them and saying, look, here's what you need to think about, ladies. Here's the grand strategy. This is what you ought to be thinking
Is
about.
that what they're doing, or are they really creating a phenomenal, innovative podcast that is largely circled around obliterating dumb harlots for the entertainment of a largely male audience? That's really what they're doing. And that's a beautiful thing. And good friends of mine, I commend them for that. What I'm really saying to you is this, and I don't want this point to be missed, which is that, you know, you shared the question, but it's the wrong question. You said people keep asking me, when am I going to write the rational female? Well, that's the problem. You're already thinking in the wrong way. People don't read books. You know, there are people who have bought your book and bought my book and haven't read it, right? And then there are other people that would never buy a book, right? You see, and one thing I can share with you, and you may be aware that in a great book called Mein Kampf, terrible book, really, it's garbage. But in the book, he said something critical. He said, the written word will never change the world. In a book, within the written word, he said the written word will never change the world, which is to say you need action. So even the concept of if I write the rational female, the rational female is not going to do anything. I mean, we even have something called the Quran, the Bible, the Torah. Those books are called holy by God, and they don't do anything. So to think that a book is about to change anything significant is just, it's silliness. Honestly, it's infantile thinking.
So where do you go from there? What do you do?
I've already described that.
Do you have a let's just say a cult leader? Do you have a top guy who's going to sort of, you know, put down the the word of God for everybody else to follow? I mean, is that how it works? Because again, you can have, like I said in that comic, you can have all of the data, but people don't. If you can give people all the data in the world, but if you don't tell them how to feel about it, they're going to hate you for that. They're going to insert their own meaning just by giving it to them. They're going to go, why are you telling me about this? Do you think I need to know this? Do you think that this, what are you trying to say about me? Right. They'll insert their own meaning into whatever it is and say, no, here's some dots to connect. What do you, is this useful to you? Can you find some way to actually use this stuff to improve your life? And the problem is that I don't think that enough people really realize it. Like, you're talking about a top down methodology. I'm talking about a bottom-up methodology where it's each one tells one.
Give me 1 second. We're just gonna hit some.
Okay, CK said red pillars have an issue of romanticizing a melancholic suffrage that is usually self-inflicted instead of taking the underlying estate of actual self-improvement. Darius says Marquett has provided tools that allows his subscribers to start businesses that mint tall stacks of money within months and keep loads of high-quality women. Red pill has not done nearly that much.
It's because red pill's not about that.
Chanity Unplugged said, who studies under Aristotle?
Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great.
Right. By the way, Rolo, just thank you for actually having some knowledge. Thank you. Thank you. Baller alert.
He said that bald man on the left is cooking.
In a real way.
Ilbrew said, peace to the saints. I've been waiting for this collab. Much respect to you both. Jabrizi said, in magic, we used to say the more simple the trick, the better. I remember watching magician do this complicated trick and it put everyone to sleep. In his mind, it was brilliant, but he forgot the trick for the audience, not him.
Right.
We have Brandon. He sent his question by email. He said, I have a brother whom I don't respect. He is not a good person. My father and mother, whom I do respect, have asked me to do a specific task for him. He is in a time of desperate need. Note that I tried to help my brother before, but he told me his affairs were none of my business. Should I help him this one time exclusively for the sake of my parents, or should I stick to the script? My brother's affairs are none of my business. He says, peace to the saints. Great collab. I'll spin the replay.
Go ahead, Rolo.
I need more information. Like, is this like you're going to give him money? Are you going to?
Rolo would need more information. This man is a scholar. Next time I think it's something I'm mind boggled, I'm gonna ask you because you deep as hell.
What constitutes help? Is it like you're going to give him money, or are you going to like give him advice, or are you going to let him sleep on your couch? What's the help? I need to know what the help
that boy Rolo. You can't hang around black folks. We got a saying. We have a saying which is we got two sayings for you. One, you talking, but you ain't saying shit. You probably heard some black people say that. And the second one is make it plain, which means like, God damn it, make it easy for us. Listen, young man, fuck that ball. Fuck him. Is his affair, carrying on. Thank you.
Okay. We have Eugene said, great dialogue, respect to both gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Wayne said, peace to the saints, tuition, love the conversation.
Yes.
Johnny says, peace to the saints. Shout out to Rolo for coming on.
Rolo's a real one.
We have Major Mind and Soul is back and said, Rolo, what is the value of continuously analyzing a problem without a solution in mind?
It's not continuous analyzation. That's just it. Is that you have to remember that when you get to a certain point, there becomes what we call a predictive framework, right? So when we talk about like, okay, so I'm in the middle of writing another book right now. The book is called Maxims. Okay. And the maxims are this, like, why do these red pill guys say these certain things? So if I say, for example, I say women break rules for alphas and they make rules for betas. That is a predictive framework. Okay. If you're in a state where a woman is making more rules for you, odds are she probably doesn't see you as somebody that she's wants to break rules for. So explaining that in less minute detail, right? So that you understand that these aren't just like stupid like jingoisms that the red pill has come up with. Or for instance, like one of the things I say is like women have boyfriends and girlfriends. If you're not fucking her, then you are her girlfriend. Well, what does that mean? It means that there's a community, like men and women communicate differently. And so let's get into that. So if I can give you again, and maybe this comes back to your point here, I can tell you about stuff in very like very simplistic terms. I could give you like the maxims kind of thing. But what happens is then somebody else takes those and they run with them. And then everyone in the sort of collective society says, oh, that's stupid. Give me the TLDR version of this. I can do that. But the problem is in me giving you that, then people will say, ha, I got you. You didn't think about this. No, I did. You just asked me to give you the TLDR version of this. And if you'd asked me to give you a bit more detail to it, then you would understand that I've been thinking about this stuff for 22 fucking years. And then we can have a conversation about it. So by you asking me for the TLDR definition or terminology, whatever, like why this is, the problem is people want to insert their like sort of gotcha moment into that, or you didn't think of this, or what about this, or what about that?
But those people are idiots. Why even entertain that?
If you'd ask me for if you say, okay, why do you say that? And you want to sit down and be a little bit more patient about things and you understand, then what you save us both time if you do that.
Those people who give you the, you didn't think of this, those are idlers, trolls, and it's like, why even engage that?
Mm-hmm. Well, because I'll tell you why. Because because for every troll, there's 100 other people who've never heard of this stuff, and they're looking at this and going, "What the fuck is this all about?" People ask me this, like, "Why do you debate Ruslan? Why do you debate this guy? Why do you even bother doing any of that? Because he's never going to change his mind about anything." I don't do those shows because I think I'm going to change their mind. I do it because I know that there's going to be, several thousand people on the chat that might get something out of it. And it's for their benefit, not for his benefit. Fuck, are you kidding? I'm not going to change their mind. I'm just going to change Dr. Phil's mind, for fuck's sake. That was like 2.5 million people.
Fair enough.
Okay, we have Hexican American said, it's sad that to reach the masses, you have to dumb down your message. Rolo, we appreciate you saving lives. When wars are fought with sticks, we will be cherishing lessons that were written down. And we have George said, tuition, thank you for the conversation. Peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints.
I'm caught up.
Rolo, I did want to ask you about a number of persons in the space.
Sure.
Okay, so
let's get started. Well, I knew we were going there, so
I don't even. Well, give me some prediction. What are you predicting? I'm going to say.
Let's see. Pearl, Andrew Tate, and Kevin Samuels. Maybe not Kevin Samuels. Fresh and Fit.
Kevin Samuels is dead, so I was just like, he don't matter. He dead. He don't matter.
I hate that. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I hate that. I remember Andrew Tate, like right after Kevin Samuels died, Tate said, "Oh yeah, nobody would be talking about him in a month," and he was right. They just disappeared, and I was like, and now look where Tate is too. So
So yeah, and Pearl actually was going to skip Pearl. If you have any statements you'd like to make, but I was actually going to skip that one. Do you have any statements you want to make, and we'll go on to other more interesting things?
I think I'll just leave it at this. I think she is probably the single worst representative for the red pill that there possibly could exist right now. In fact, if anything, I think she's like, people are going to say this is a conspiracy theory, but I really think that she is like controlled opposition. And whenever she throws something out, whenever it's a slow news cycle for like Daily Wire, she throws some Molotov cocktail out of there, and women ought not to vote, or something like super outrageous, and then like within a day.
Do you think that women should not vote?
I think women should vote, but I think that we need to understand, like, when it comes to like voting, I think there needs to be like qualification for voting in a period, right? I mean, if you have skin in the game, then you should be able to vote. It used to be like back in let's say the 1800s and the early 1900s, it was, voting, our attitudes towards like voting was much different than it is today. And it was usually like you had to have some sort of skin in the game. And I think that was one of the hesitancies that a lot of people had ratifying the 19th Amendment back in 1920. Because it was like, well, what do women bring to the table, right? Why should they be able to vote?
Good question, Rolo. What do they bring? Okay, so cool. So there's Pearl.
I love it when people say, what is it? Was it get rid of the 19th Amendment or something like that? I'm like, great, cool. You want to do that? I'm all ears. How are you going to do that? Tell me how that's going to happen. Tell me what's going to happen.
It can be done. I'm not saying it should be done, but I'm saying it can be done.
Repeal the 19th. Okay.
One thing that we know from history, those of us who have observed it, I trust you have, much stranger things have happened, Rolo. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think
repealing the 19th Amendment. You kidding me? You know what happened with the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia? Wearing eyeglasses will get you killed.
Sure.
Getting an education will get you killed. You took a trip outside of Cambodia. Now you're getting killed.
Okay, outside of murderous, tyrannical regimes in communist, Korea or
Cambodia.
How are you going to do that?
Let me help you out, Rolo. Don't be foolish. Don't be foolish and think that the West is somehow different. Don't be foolish and think that communist regimes are somehow different than non-communist regimes.
Can we do it without a lot of death?
For example, well, that is actually the way of change in human societies. Mostly.
100%.
You know what? That's the problem with you guys, is that you want to do it in the beta male way. You want to do it in the beta male way, not realizing that when someone has power, the only way to take it out of their hands is to rip it out. That's the problem. For example, just to remind you, if you look at the Third Reich, when Hitler came into power, the Germans were the most educated people on earth. When they say they were superior, there was a lot of merit to that. You look at their achievements in anthropology, their achievements in genetics, their achievements in physics, their achievements in philosophy. They were the most advanced Europeans at that time and still became brutish.
I will agree with you up to a point. I will say that authority is never given and it is never just handed to someone. Authority by nature, by the definition of authority must be taken. Authority must be seized. You have to be able to take that authority away. That's really what it comes down to. And that's why when I have the conversation.
This person, Slate Warrior, who I doubt is a warrior, he writes, Marquett would never talk to him like that in person. Rolo, I know we've never met in person.
Like as a person, let's get together. I'll be happy to.
I know we've never met in person. Do you get a sense that I would be scared to talk to you how I'm talking to you right now in person?
No, not at all.
And just side note,
I would hope you'd be worse.
And side note, I don't even feel like I'm being rude, mean, and aggressive. I personally like Rolo. We've talked before previously. In my perspective, I don't think I've said anything foul, mean, degrading. I don't think I've been insulting, at least not intentionally. If I have been, my apologies. That's not my intention.
No.
Yeah, because when I don't like someone, it's very clear. And I have no qualms. Rolo could be a giant, and I'll still be ultra disrespectful. The problem with these kind of persons, this is the red pill mentality. These are persons who have not been outside. And when they see something, sometimes you see something like Bigfoot, never seen it before, you don't comprehend it. People have trouble comprehending me because I really am what I present myself to be. I've written a book. It's called The Black Box. You can read about my real life story. You read about court cases. Those are real cases you can look up on Google. You find out who grew up with me. If I showed you my friends, you wouldn't believe it. They're all covered in tattoos. I don't even look like that from which I come. This kind of stuff, this is silliness. And for example, Rollo, when I asked you earlier, like, why do you even engage idlers and trolls? This is what we're dealing with. And the truth is that these kinds of persons have to be violently marginalized because they're a weight to progress. And that's what people don't understand. Average people, and this is from Henry Kissinger, they asked him about morality and ethics. And Henry Kissinger, mind you, is a genius, but also a war criminal. And the truth of the matter is, he said, the ethics of a good man are different than the ethics of a great man. I'll do what a great man needs to do. You dig? It's the good men and it's the nerds and intellectuals who are not willing to do what is necessary. And so they live in broken ways because they need to use the system and vote. Well, what happens? You vote and then they steal the election. You vote and then all of a sudden the votes are miscounted. You vote and then the president is doing backdoor deals with Ukraine and Russia. It's you people who operate within a broken system thinking you're going to fix it when you just get subsumed by the system, not realizing sometimes the system is broken.
Keep going. No, I'm all about it. I 100% agree with you. We have more regulation on the slot machines in Vegas than we do on our voting standards right now. We can put a rover on Mars, but we can't have a fair election and freaking, we can have 4K streaming video from fucking Mars, and we can't have a real election here. Get the fuck out of here. It's either. So what does that mean? That means they are unwilling to have a free and open election. And the other thing is just more to that guy's point is that I think that a lot of guys, and you could say, I would say this is I will give this to the red pill community. I think you're not really talking about the red pill. I think it's really the community of the guys that are like about it. Right. Okay. But the thing is that a lot of these guys don't know how to deal with other men as well. And so people want to say, well, Rollo, you guys are always so critical of women and you want to hold them accountable and you want to, run the flagpole. I'm like, yeah, no, but we also talk about guys. And we also like one of the number one problems I get from guys, like in my personal, like my Patreon group and like we doing one-on-one counseling, these guys don't have tribes. They don't know how to, they don't have the social skills to deal with men, much less women. And so what you're talking about here is like when guys, oh, you would never say that to him in his face. I'm like,
by the way, full disclosure, I'm violent. Like if I had a problem with Rollo, I would sock Rollo the fuck out.
Yeah.
On site with no, I wouldn't be worried about, he's going to call the police. I would sock Rollo the fuck out and I would sock you out. That's just me though. I don't recommend that. But and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rollo. I just want everyone to understand I respect Rollo. And if you've watched any of my content before, you see what happens when Marquett doesn't respect someone. You see that. I respect Rollo, and I want everyone to understand we can be in vehement disagreement and then still go hang out, slap fives, go talk to some chicks, go, do whatever guys like to do, collaborate in business because we're men. And that's the difference between men and women. One thing I talked about with the women's games based on the female games, based on research, which is when women come into conflict during the game's over. When men come into conflict during the game, we say, okay, jump ball, or, like we'll do X, Y, and Z to resolve it within the game. We can be brutal during the boxing match. And when it's over, we're friends again. And mind you, everyone who's watching and it says debate, I want to have a conversation with Rollo because I respect him as an intellectual. I put debate because many of you guys are too stupid to click it if it doesn't say debate. If it said conversation, Marquett gets to know Rollo, Marquett interviews Rollo, it's not interesting.
We had coffee and candlelight and nice biscottis together, and we're just chit-chatting. Yeah, that doesn't get eyes on the fucking screen. And I understand what you're saying. The other thing is like you got guys. I know there's like my guys are in the chat, your guys are in chat right now.
And shout out to Rollo's folks. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys for following me over here. But I've said this on several different occasions. I guess it's worth repeating is that the only way to test the strength of an idea is in the crucible of open debate. And if you can't have that, then you can't think. Then you can't like develop critical thinking skills if you're unwilling to actually have thought experiments and to be able to be offended. If that's the case, you have to be able to be offended. And you have to actually learn something from that person at the same time. So when we're having these, this back and forth. And by the way, I don't think this is it. I've had hostile debates before. Trust me on that one. Okay. But I'm enjoying this right now because like we can actually have an exchange of ideas, a marketplace of ideas, right? The problem is that people who are in the chat or people who come to see this kind of stuff, it's blood sport to them. Right. Oh, he got destroyed. Let me go get the 30 minutes or the 30-second clip of Rolo going, oh, wait, here you go. Use that one. There you go. There's your thumbnail for you.
I appreciate you, Rolo. Thank you.
The thumbnail, the stupid face thing, with the Mr. Beast. That I'll give it to you because that's all they really want is they want us. It's team sports. It's my jersey against his jersey kind of thing. And that doesn't help anybody and nobody gets anything out of the conversation. And that's why, like, when people say, like, for instance, when I'm on like Access Vegas with Mike, our point of being on there with those girls isn't to kick them off the show. And people go, you're so soft on them. How come you guys, how can you let her get away with that? Myron would never let that happen.
Right. Myron would never.
Point. Yeah, I know. It's not blood sport. But that's like you said, you got to put debate on, like, when you put that thing up there, when you first like called me out, I'm like, why is he calling me out? I know Marquett. Okay. Because it's are you familiar with the concept of kayfabe? Kayfabe is like professional wrestling. It's like professional wrestlers know that, like, if the Undertaker is going to go after, Macho Man Randy Savage, right? They're going to fight they don't have any like animosity towards each other, but they have to like immediately say, okay, brother, I'm going to meet you in the ring and we're going to have it like men. Like they're playing in character. It's LARPing basically is what it is. And you
remember Mick Foley, just side note. You remember Mick Foley, Mankind? Bruh, that's Destiny. Destiny is Mick Foley, Mankind.
I loved your stuff, by the way. I loved your stuff on calling out Sneeko, which is another one of these. I probably should have added that name to the list. Zerka, Sneeko. I don't know who's the other kid. Jack Doherty, Neon. I think a lot of these guys came over from like the Twitch space. Like they either got banned off of Twitch and they said, fuck it, I'll go over to YouTube. And like that, it's a whole different beat. It's a whole different animal to be on Twitch. If you're a TikToker and you're trying to get off of TikTok and you're trying to get into the YouTube space, you have to be entertaining for like an hour instead of 45 seconds.
Right.
I see a lot of these guys. I know Sneeko. I think and I have to say it. I think one of the biggest mistakes that Myron and Fresh ever did was like, lionize Sneeko as some sort of authority in this space.
Wow.
I think that was the start of it because that like links to like Destiny and it links to DJ Academics, which I know you've done. Actually, those are the ones that I've watched the most.
We actually kind of have some. This is why we know Rolo's a good guy. We have the same enemies.
Yeah, exactly. That's
it's good versus evil, ladies and saints.
Yeah. So he's come at me. He was just coming at me recently. Who the fuck am I into this guy?
That's beautiful. That's good.
But so I mean, there's that connection. Then there's Zerka. Then there's Gary the Numbers guy. Who I get Gary the Numbers guy now. But like,
what do you mean?
Like, drag in Neon. Then we're gonna drag in God no HS Tiki Taki, and they're gonna have a fight or whatever. And it's just like, God damn it, man! Like there was a dream that was the red pill, but this is not it, And I just. But
who are the anti-heroes?
What's that?
If you were naming them, and I'm going to stop so that everyone can hear you, but if you were naming the people who are not red pill but appear to be red pill, and I do actually want to talk a little bit about Coach Greg Adams in as much as he's also a Vegas guy, and I'd heard you say that he's not RP and shit. I obviously don't know what is and what isn't, but I want to talk a little bit through that one. But real quick, like, who are the people that just are not red pill according to you?
Gosh, where do I start?
At the beginning.
Well, okay, Sneeko is definitely not red pill. I'm not even really sure Andrew Tate was ever like really quote unquote red pill because with the expediency with which he like dumped the red pill, you'll know the people who aren't really about it by how quickly they pivot out of it when they have the opportunity to pivot out of it. I can name some names that you probably wouldn't even know, like John Somnez and some of these other guys, but like a lot of these guys are like old school names that nobody would really remember. But currently, I would say certainly I don't think Zerka is in any way red pill. In fact, if anything, he's just again professional wrestling is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Sneeko not. I'm trying to think. Well, Pearl, I would say, is definitely not red pill. She's more about the entertainment value. She's a fast follower, is what she is. And there's no, like, she's very one dimensional. There's nothing really to Pearl. And then she will do anything that she has to. Like, trust me, if you think you're friends with Pearl right now, you just haven't outlived your usefulness just yet. That's how it works.
That is this industry, though.
Well, so what I notice is this: like, there's a lot of guys who are like got into this space, and there's still a lot of good, honest actors. I'm not going to say that there aren't, but there's a lot of guys who got into the space because they took some seminar how to get rich on starting a YouTube channel or something like that, and then they go, well, what's trending? MGTOW. I'm a MGTOW today, right? Like, whatever works to sort of to be about the business. It's about the brand, and everything right now I think is about like brand management. Dating is brand management. What you and I are doing right now, this is brand management for us. If you're on Instagram, that's brand management. And the problem is that the sort of like the personas that we make for ourselves online, we end up believing our own bullshit. We end up thinking eventually, like, if you keep doing it enough, you will become the brand. And I keep looking at guys that I used to know who I knew the man, but I can only talk to the brand. Like, anything that comes out of their mouth is always on brand. It's always on point. It's always on. It's an advertisement or something that's going to, like, in some way get some sort of like play or engagement. Like, dude, no, can we just talk about like deep sea fishing? Can we talk about like what the fuck, can we ski? Can we go like take the snowmobiles out? What kind of dogs do you have? Like, none of that. It's always about whatever the fucking brand is. And I think that is the only, like, Mike's not like that. And I don't think Aaron Clary is like that, but I know a lot of guys who really have allowed.
It just dawned on me who Aaron is. He was the economist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron is,
he's the economist. Yeah. He was very much so someone I didn't perceive as putting on airs. Like, he was just like, this is who I am.
Yeah, what you see is what you get. Yeah. He is Gran Torino. He is a Gran Torino, man. He is Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino. That's all he is, right? He's an economist. He's a minimalist. And I've known him since 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. But I would say the people who are like, there's people who are about the red pill, and then they're also about other stuff too. So it's like whatever's convenient, whatever happens to be playing that week, that's what they get into. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, as long as
ask you about CGA.
Sell themselves as authorities.
Let me ask you about CGA, because and also just real quick, I reposted a video on Coach Red Pill recently, and then people had told me like, yeah, Rolo said he's not Red Pill. So and I made that video like 4 years ago before he was in jail. I'm not going to kick anybody while they're down. Actually, I would if they're my enemy.
Take them out. That'll kick you. Yeah.
But I made that video 4 years ago. So in your book, he's not Red Pill.
I honestly think he's he was one of the guys that got into the space right around like 2017, 2018, and they came in on the MGTOW wave. Coach Greg Adams, same thing. Joker from Better Bachelor came in on the
Greg Adams came in on the men going their own way.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was funny is like then I would see like Joker or I would see like CGA on I don't have anything against him personally. I'm just like, I see what the grift is, right? It's just come in on I'm going to talk about men's self-improvement or whatever, because that was the hashtag that was trending at the time. The reason I say this because like when I was at the time in like 2017, 2018, it was myself and an individual named Anthony Johnson and Rich Cooper and our particular group. And we saw a lot of an influx. These guys are the only names you still remember. There was a lot of other guys that came in with them as well.
Forgive me for interrupting you, because I actually am interested. Not only interested in as much as I've done a collab with Coach Greg Adams, just one, so nothing major. We've had a bite to eat, and I know how my beef started up. In this case, had you had any like communication with him before you're like,
no,
he's phony or not at like
so I honestly don't have a problem with CGA at all whatsoever. I mean, what he says, I can agree with pretty much everything he says. I just didn't like the person.
I don't agree. I never debated him, but I don't agree with much of what he said.
Well, I get where he's coming from. I get why he's popular. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
But I was gonna say, so the thing is he started working with Anthony Johnson in the 21 convention, and our policy was we don't work with retards, and we don't work with retards who work with retards. It was, so if you're working with Anthony Johnson, then you're not working with us. That's simple. If you don't see a psychopath or a pathological personality and you think that going and doing that convention is in any way beneficial to your brand, then you're not smart enough to figure out like that, maybe you're not cut out for this space. I like CGA. I've quoted CGA. I've talked about him when he did his I think you did this too, the debate between him and Hafiz on Sauce.
Yeah, he showed up.
I thought that was pretty good, right?
Yeah, I like CGA.
Hafiz is another he's out of the space right now, but
I don't agree with his philosophy. And when I was talking with him, I was interviewing him. I wasn't debating him. So I don't agree with his philosophy. I didn't speak up much on that. And I think he and I know where our differences are. But I like him. He's a cool cat. I'm happy to have him in the city. Now, the 21 Conventions guy, when I typed in your name, what if people said negative about Rolo? Which, to your credit, there's really not much there, honestly.
Not him. I know. Okay, we can't find any. Let's make some up.
There's not much there. But most of what it is was that guy. I don't know his name. We don't even need to say his name, honestly, but the 21 Conventions guy, that man does not like you.
Yeah, the president of the manosphere. Yeah.
That man does not like you. What happened there?
Functionally autistic. How you think I'm long-winded about the rip?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, I had a the first time I ever did a live appearance was at the 21 convention in Orlando. That was in 2017. And I was kind enough to like bring my friends along, like Ryan Stone, who I think is should be one of the foundations of the red pill, quite honestly.
Okay.
And then Rich Cooper came with me.
Is Rich Cooper the bald guy with the beard?
Yes.
Okay.
And then and several other people that you probably would know. Was it Alan Roger Curry? Also,
okay, yeah, shout out to him. Now he's another smart guy. I don't remember.
Rest in peace.
Do a video with him, or we just.
But yeah, he's no longer with us. But
irrelevant now. But yeah, he was a smart guy.
Yeah, a smart guy. Mode 1, and he and by the way, he and I used to have the same kind of conversations you and I are having right now, where it's like we would have a very heated conversation. We'd be like, okay, let's go have a beer afterwards, kind of thing. But I started probably doing too much with him. I didn't really read the signs. Like Ryan Stone used to tell me this.
Roger or with the 21
convention, Anthony Johnson. So but we started doing a panel show called the Red Man Group, and that started building. I know it's pretty cool.
Shout out to the people who have no clue what that reference is.
What that reference is, yeah. But so we started doing that, and then right around 2019, he just had a completely Asperger's moment, and decided that he was going to be the president of the manosphere. And if you've ever seen any of his like sort of presidential speeches where he's like, I'm like, the guy is psychotic.
I've not ever seen. The only thing I've ever seen was him dragging you through the dirt. That's the only thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, but because I was the one who sort of like saved his convention back then. He was like actually trying to do like Kickstarters and like trying to go do GoFundMe so he could like stay solvent back then. I came on board and brought some new blood into the convention, and then I don't know when in 2019 he decided that he was going to flame out. But I think it was because he wanted to pivot to more like political topics. And if you probably to this day, I don't think he's taken that damn MAGA hat off since like 2018. I think he showers with it on, and he's just not all together, man. I mean, it's a pathological personality, and the people that he's worked with, and there's all kinds of stuff. He used to stalk my daughter online, and it was just a bad scene. And so Rich, to his credit, is the first one to bottle out of that situation, and then he ended up stabbing me in the back around June of 2019. But the good thing that came out of that was that we started Rule 0 as a result of that, because people really liked the Red Man Group, but we couldn't do it anymore. And so I just said, fuck it, I'm out. We'll go do something else. And that's what we did.
Got you. Okay.
I'm happy to say that that's behind me.
Fair enough.
Better enemies. I got better enemies.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
Okay, we have Jabrizi is back and said, I think the red pill needs more entertainment to convert the masses, and more leadership and more character building groups, because wisdom won't hold with a bad character.
Agree. Okay.
I agree.
Uncle Luke said, I would say this about the RP space. Too many keyboard clowns making the space look wild. Also, too many weirdos looking for drama. Back in my day, guys got snuffed for talking smack in real life.
Yep.
He came right back and said, by the way, peace to the saints. I enjoy seeing a black man have high IQ conversations with the best of them in the RP space.
I think I might be like the only actual black guy on YouTube that says intelligent things. I think I'm smarter than the white guys too, but I'm the only black one.
And then he
That's
said, the way
crazy.
you present yourself is spectacular.
I appreciate that.
We have CK is back and said, if the red pill had a leader instead of being a general fairy cloud, the movement might have been able to contain bad apples and highlight good actors.
Right.
Movements need leaders or the message is at risk. We have Othon said, very high IQ conversation, way better than MLD or Molestiny. Rolo is an OG, but that's why the big homie is the leader of the assassin. God bless you both.
Do you mess with BBMLD?
He used to be part of Rule Zero till about 18, maybe a year and a half ago, and then he decided he just wanted to do his own thing. I don't have anything against him, but I understand what he's about, you know.
Which is what?
Well, I mean, it's that branding. Remember, I said you start believing in your own personal brand, and you start believing you become the persona that you create for yourself online. And then I want to talk to the man. I don't want to talk to the brand anymore. And it's like getting increasingly more difficult with people who I like, who I've known for a long time. And it's one of the most frustrating things I have to deal with these days.
Fair enough.
I want to talk to the man, not the brand.
And you know, Rolo, one thing I can say about you, and part of it is generational, obviously, but I don't look at you and see anyone else, right? Like I don't look at you like, oh, you look just like these other 5 pickup artists, dating coach guys. Whereas I'm like, if MLD was lighter skin and tall and had muscles, he'd be Jay Waller.
More or less. Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, probably would.
Right, he'd be Jay Waller. If he was taller, lighter skin, and had muscles, he'd be Jay Waller. Come on.
On Cash App, we have Britain said, thank you for your work. ALS says, I'll have to catch the replay. I have an issue with the Red Pill community. Red Pill comes off as a revenge tour for men who don't know how to reflect and move forward from teenage dating.
Damn.
I would agree with that in the sense that it's if we're talking about incels, if we're talking about the community, like I think that's the thing that like people really want to say, well, it's those red pill guys again, those red pill guys. And again, it's let me get philosophical with. Let me get really quickly philosophical with you. This is me spitballing here, by the way. I would say, and I've said this on my show, it's actually in my second book. The human condition is defined by discontent. Okay. You will never be content. You will never fucking be happy. And that's a good thing. You're supposed to be that way because the minute you get your achievement, the minute you get to the top of the mountain, the minute you get your diploma, the minute you get the job, your dream job or whatever, you think you got it. It's happy. You're good with it for the first like week and a half. And then you're on to the next thing. When's the next plateau? When's the next thing that I can get to? And that's a good fucking thing. So discontent defines the human condition. It's the way we deal with it. That's the difference. You can deal with it constructively or you can deal with it destructively. I choose to deal with it constructively and creatively, and I think you should too, okay? But when you have these guys who are like commiserating and they're like the forever alone guys and they're the true force loneliness guys and they're the incel guys and the black pill doomer guys. And when they get conflated with the red pill, that's when I have to actually take issue with that because that is not what the red pill is about. It's never, I talk about taking action. I talk about guys, here's the dots. Here's what you can do. Here's the tools. Go and I put it this way. I say, I'm going to give you the paintbrush. I'm going to give you the paints. I'm going to give you the turpentine. I'm going to give you the rag. I'm going to give you the palette knife. I'm going to give you all this stuff, but you're the canvas and you get to use these tools here. I can, tell you about women's nature and your nature and evolutionary psychology and all this ology stuff, but you have to create your own picture. You are the artist of your freaking life. And it's up to you to go and do that and to make yourself into the best version of yourself using these tools and everything. Or would you rather it be a color by number where I give you the color by, here's the Rolo Tomasi color by number. You put a yellow in number 19 and you put red in number 4. And if that's what you're looking for, don't come to me because you are the one who is the guy that gets to paint the picture that's on that canvas. These guys don't want to do that. They would rather somebody either hold their hand and guide them through life, or they'd rather grind their teeth over it and they would commiserate with, and there's plenty of places you can do that right now to go commiserate with your friends and not then just stay stuck in the mud.
And one thing, to respect Rolo's time, I want to let everyone know that we're about to wind down. So if you have burning questions or something you feel like we didn't address, please send it in right now. Absolutely, because we're about to wind down.
Yeah.
Rolo, I appreciate you having taken out the time to be here to engage the conversation genuinely, in a very thoughtful way. I mean, I saw when there was supposed to be a gotcha moment with you and Destiny, and I saw that Molestiny was like asking you a question like, hey, define this. Well, what is this? What is a high value man? Is like, please, like you're not sincerely trying to build upon knowledge, but rather you're using a negotiation strategy just to exhaust. I saw I'm trying to exhaust you by asking you unnecessary questions.
It's a filibuster strategy.
Exactly, precisely. And so I appreciate you coming here in sincerity and having a very great conversation that can build. And I hope everyone watching realizes that Rolo and I are on the same team. I view Rolo as a friend and a collaborator, and I think that our movements move in parallel, and we're seeking the same end. And I hope everyone gets that. Like, you do want to see smart, good guys who are, wanting the same thing. Like, I know it's great to see fights, but it's also good to see the super friends together.
I didn't draw blood.
Right.
I was going to say that just to tag something on the end of that. I don't know if you're familiar with Andrew Wilson from The Crucible, but he's been on whatever podcast and he locks horns with Destiny quite a bit. He and I don't agree on everything. And I had him on my show and I had Jim Sexton on, who's the divorce attorney guy. And we were talking about that. He's very much more like sort of like pro-Orthodox Christianity guy, but not entirely. He understands it. He really, I'd say probably with the Red Pill, he probably agrees with about 85, maybe 90% of it. But there's that 10% that everybody wants to stoke. They really want, hey, ask him about this because I know you guys hate each other on that, right? Or like when I do have disagreements with Mike Sartain, in fact, my co-host on Access Vegas, especially when it comes to like, can men and women be friends, right? So we talk about that quite a bit too. So once everybody knows that's like the poke that little sore on them, then so people will ask that all the time in the chat every time we do a show.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. That's how people are.
That's what keeps the conversation going.
Caught up? Fantastic. Rolo, is there anything you want to share with the people before we hop off?
Yeah, I'll be talking about Destiny on Sunday.
What time will that be?
1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. The Rational Mail. Just look, you can find me. People know where I'm at.
And that's every Sunday that you're usually doing.
Every Sunday, yeah. And people always wonder why I do it on Sundays. I do it because I used to have a partner, Pat Campbell, who was my mentor. God rest his soul. He died in 2020 or 2021. He was a terrestrial radio show, a syndicated terrestrial radio show host, and he was the guy that taught me how to do what I do right now. And we used to do it. The only time he could do it was at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Sundays, because he would go, because he was Catholic. He was an Irish Catholic guy. And that was when mass was over, and he got back, gave him an hour, and then we came in and we did it. So out of respect, I still keep that time slot. So
beautiful. Check out Rolo. You're going to be talking about the blue-haired booty bandit, guaranteed to be hilarious. 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Also, Rolo's books are in the description. If you click that author page, it'll show you everything he's got. He's got another one he's working on that'll be coming out soon. And as well, his Instagram is below that. Rolo, thank you very much for the conversation. It was truly a pleasure.
Let's do it again. We got to do it in Vegas. We did it live in Vegas. We'll do it at Red One Studios next time.
Your call. All right.
You got it. All right, guys.
Those who are wise will always be able to see what I'm doing, because if you can't watch 4 of my videos and not see what I'm about. You can't watch 4 of my videos and not see that there's something deeper here. And more importantly, you can't be among the saints and not see that we have something strong and powerful, and it only gets stronger. Saints, it has been truly a pleasure to be here fellowshipping with you. I tell you, I could have done a lot of things tonight, and I'm so happy that I did this and had this time to spend with you. It's been an honor. Let us end this the way we always end this, with our tradition, the Creed of the Assassin. The Creed of the Assassin. I am going to be who I truly am, because I am remarkable. And I'm going to strive every moment to show the greatest part, to show the greatest part of who I am. Until next time.